Happy Sunday, everybody. Today we're going to look at an 8-40 CW by Atlas. So we're just going to dive right into this. I'm going to be a little all over the place because I've got some real mixed feelings about this engine. Not that it isn't good, but I've had issues with Atlas quality in the past, and go find my GP40, GP38-2 review where I talk about this in depth, but I was a little worried when I purchased this engine because of the history I've had with Atlas. So I had a little bit of a negative bias going into this, and I think this overcame it. And I really want to talk about some of the details of this thing because I think Atlas is missing the mark, and I'm surprised that they didn't fix this before they released this model. One of the first major gripes I have with this is just looking at the engine. It might be hard to tell because of the black paint and the way that the camera's angled, but I've got the track power off here, and I'm just going to slowly move the camera down, so hopefully this just comes up nicely in picture here. And there we are. If you're looking underneath this engine, you can see that it kind of has the monster truck effect going on. There is a huge gap between the trucks and the upper body, and it's especially pronounced here on the back of the engine. It's not like the frame is not properly seated on the body, because when lined up with other engines, I'll just move this Scale Trains Operator Series kind of into frame here. The coupler height is relatively close. It could stand to come down a little bit, but the actual mounting tabs that these are on would drastically drop the frame height. And it might be a modification that I try to do. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep or sell this model, so I didn't know if I wanted to do that, but it definitely runs kind of high, and this is kind of one of those things that kills the illusion for me. I kind of have a little bit of an issue with the gap that you get in here. It just looks terrible on camera, and honestly, what they were trying to do with this engine, I think they were really trying to up the quality and frame detail and push it into a higher price point market. And so when you get the scale trains next to it, the area underneath the truck is nice and filled in, and there's a good look. And if you definitely get really close to this, let's see here. There it is right there. I'll try to get this to focus. There's a bit of under frame, much like I talked about in my Cato review, that fills in that gap and makes for a nice clean look. And when you get up close under this, there's nothing there. It's just, you know, open frame detail. I did some looking at some pictures of some actual 8-40s, and I do believe that that is probably relatively accurate, other than the trucks are much closer to the body, and I just think Atlas screwed this up. And so I did a little bit of forum hunting just to see if anybody talked about this, and it seems that this was kind of an issue on some of the older models. So they've been building this particular body for the better part of, I want to say 20 years. I want to say those forum posts talking about the DCC ready, like the initial run on these, had really high bodies that didn't look very good. And so that's, I think they were in 2004 or 5 that those forum postings were up. So this isn't a new issue, and I'm surprised they didn't fix it. For reference, here is a Bachmann Spectrum that I found at a garage sale for next to nothing. It is broken and doesn't run, but I thought it would make a cool little detail on my layout someday. But if you look underneath it, the trucks do kind of sit a little bit lower, much like the Atlas one here next to me. But the way they build the component for the truck, you know, the actual gear housing mechanism, it's kind of squared off and fills in that area. So it kind of helps sell the illusion that, you know, this isn't a toy train. So not that Spectrum is by any means a cheap, you know, engine. That one just happens to be an old one that is you know, from a different era of train or railroading, and it has a better look in my opinion than this does in the truck department. I would like to get my hands on some of the newer Bachmann sound locomotives, the Dash 8s. They're really the only other manufacturer that I found that has Dash 8s, so maybe that'll be one of these things I check out here in the future, but I'm unsure on this. I'm going to talk about reliability a little bit here, but let's go ahead and get an up-close look at this thing and see what Atlas has done to really turn this into a nice engine other than the trucks. So I have my grievances with Accumates, and these do not make me feel any better about them, but a little bit floppy. They do stay coupled relatively well. They do not lock into microtrains very well on this particular model. I don't know if it's because they're a little bit floppy or whatnot, but not exactly my favorite. I know they're an Atlas thing, but I just wish that you could order these with whatever coupler you wanted on them. So this is something that I really want to give Atlas a lot of credit for. They did an excellent job here. They finally got ditch lights, and they work excellent on this machine. This has a lock sound decoder in it, and there are no extra wires or anything attached to the frame. And they used light tubes and some reflective covering, and I have to say they really did an awesome job, because there is zero cab bleed on this thing. You have a nice bright upper headlight that functions independently of the ditch lights. And I don't know if you can quite see in there, but the ditch lights are even relatively bright. Also, nice detail on the front end here. The snowplow looks really good, and the ditch lights are below the footsteps, which is not something you see very often. I know it's something kind of specific to these engines, but they actually got them to function properly, and there's no extra wires. There's just separate light pipes running to basically a stock lockdown decoder. Atlas, as much grief as I give you on other stuff, you did an awesome job on this, and I gotta say, I appreciate the simplicity, especially when you take off the body to check things out and do maintenance. While we're up here looking at this, handles for the coupler, all the safety railing painted, ready to go. Atlas again, awesome, great job. Separately applied hand grabs up here, nice and scale, really small, close to the frame, which is nice. Sometimes that stuff gets pushed up a ways just because it's so small. Kind of looks like it's hovering there. Awesome job. Really, really does look great. The black kind of takes some of the detail out of this, but if you are looking up close on the trucks, they do look decently detailed. Dash 8's going to have their own, you know, older looking truck set. That's kind of the difference that's easily distinguishable between an 8 and a 9. Let's go ahead and just change our... Okay, got this back in a little bit better view here. And yeah, really nice body detail on this. All of the little compartments are nicely opened up. There is a little bit of in-cab detail. You probably can't see it on camera, unfortunately. I just don't have the setup to be able to do that. Again, like I said, trucks do have some nice detail to them. Doors are nice and deep. Good crisp lines on everything. Radiator grills look nice. Compared to other Atlases, these have nice, strong, well-attached hand grabs. Thank you. Much appreciated. There is paint on the fill caps there. A little hard to see because of the black, but it is down there. And again, painted rear end. The lights on the back are nice and bright. If you were to run this in reverse, kind of a Norfolk Southern thing, it is nicely nice and bright. The one thing I do have to say I'm not a real big fan of is the air tanks on this side look a little chintzy, and it's not molded as well. But everything is painted on the fuel tank here. Just get a quick look at the other side. So yeah, this is what I don't understand, is the rest of the body on this thing, for the most part, is really nice and put together. They really stepped up the detail, got their mold work on point. The little bit of in-cab detail they have looks really nice. All the separately applied hand grabs and stuff like that really add to the effect on this. But they didn't fix the undercarriage on this to look more scale, and I just don't know why they didn't go through that. And if they would have done that, drop the body down just a little bit or added in a little bit of extra molding down there, this thing would be one of the nicest looking engines you could buy for the money. And I just don't know what they were thinking there, because it's really a killer for me. It's really unfortunate. So like all of my other Atlases, I feel it is important to talk about the reliability of this engine. And the 8-40 BWs that I have, the 4-truck versions, are a little bit loud running, I will admit, and this one is probably there too. It has a bit of a loud drivetrain. If you're not running the sound on this particular model, it is apparent. However, I do want to go ahead and, future me who's editing this video, go ahead and insert the running video right here. Now that you've seen that, this was the first 8-40 CW that I purchased from Atlas. And it was a DCC ready engine. It was the first gen DCC ready with the older type decoder where it clamps in there. This is the Gen 2 that is sound ready. And that particular engine I had to send back because it ran perfectly in forward, but as soon as you put it in reverse, it was like it was missing gear teeth. It would hop and jump, and yeah, it was unfortunate because I really did like the way that engine looked. And to the best of my memory is it had a little bit lower body on it. I didn't seem to notice the monster truck effect as much as I did as on this one, but that was from quite a while ago. So that is a little bit where my apprehension came from this. But I wanted to go ahead and test these because I do want to give Atlas a shot when I can. And I looked at ordering these as DC and putting my own decoder in it. And they are out there and available. You can certainly do that. However, given the availability of certain electronics right now, I would advise against it if you are going to put a DCC decoder in this. I had a lot of troubles with Atlas engines burning up my NCE decoders, and I don't know if it's because the motors pull more power or what. I don't really have the ability to test why, but they certainly do. And I've had also a couple Digitrax decoders get a little bit wonky running in those engines. And where I can, I have swapped over to TCS decoders, and I've had better luck. One, the motors run a little bit quieter, they pull a little harder, and I haven't had a decoder burn up yet. The problem I'm running into is these new frame Atlases, the Type 2 DCC ready frames. TCS doesn't make a decoder for them yet. So that only leaves you with a couple options. You have NCE, Digitrax, maybe MRC or something like that makes one, but I try to stick with the main brands here. and lock sound. There is no lock pilot decoder that I could find, so these are about $120 to $130 DCC ready. And if you're going to run it on DC and you're okay with the monster truck effect, I think that's a decent price for these. They really have stepped up their quality. If they were $120, they would be absolutely fighting with the scale trains for the Dash 9s for looks and price point, the Operator series. They're really on point with that, and if you can justify $125 for one of those, you can probably justify $125 to $130 for these. I think they're right on the same level of detail and usability, DC. That being said, I would not do NCE or Digitrax decoders in these. I would jump and go for the better, more reliable lock sound decoder. And at that point, you would be purchasing one of those for $100 without a speaker. And these engines can be bought for $215 to $220 with the speaker installed, with the lock sound installed, all the sound files installed, basically ready to go for cheaper than what you can put your own decoder in a DCC ready engine for. So absolutely do not buy this engine if you think you're just going to drop a decoder in, unless you're okay with trying it with an NCE or Digitrax. Even then, the Digitrax decoders are running about $45 for these Atlases right now. So you're up there approaching $200 anyway. I would probably just save my money and buy the better version at that point. So you could certainly put that lock sound decoder in here and just run it as a DCC engine, but definitely buy these things ready to go with sound installed. It really makes this a whole lot more fun to play with. I believe this is a version 5 lock sound in here, and it has some finickiness that I want to get into and some issues that I have with lock sound right now. People kind of have given me a lot of guff. Well, why don't you like lock sound? Why don't you like lock sound? And people also have a little bit of an issue why I think Broadway Limited is kind of the leader in the market, in my opinion, for nice usability in their engines. My serious problem with lock sound is the programmability and how difficult they are to get to run. And if you already have everything ready to go, these are actually pretty fun to play with. You can do quite a bit with them, and I will flip on the sounds and we'll kind of run through that here in a little bit. And it really does add to the effect of these engines. My problem with lock sound becoming such a prominent figure in the United States for premium, decoders and sound systems, and them starting to come stock like on this Atlas ready to go, is you pretty well need a lock programmer to get everything ready to go and function. And some people say, yeah, you can use their software and put it into JMRI and then you can load it on there. Problem is, it takes a heck of a long time, and if something screws up, then you're fighting trying to get stuff to function properly. So I started looking around because I have a lot of these on my layout now that have lock sound decoders installed. Finding a lock programmer in the States right now is next to impossible, and it's another $135 that you got to spend to just be able to mess with your engines. And when you want to do something simple or change a feature like I'll get to here in just a little bit, it is super difficult and very time consuming to do this without a lock programmer. All right, I got the sound on here so we can go through some of the features that the lock sound decoder has on it. The one thing that these have that not a whole lot of other sound systems have are very customizable, high quality sound files. And if you get onto ESU's website, that's essentially how you change any of the parameters that you're trying to do with an engine. It's very difficult to mess with them otherwise. You download a sound file, load it into the ESU software, and then you can make adjustments from there. And so, just like some of the other engines, with the sound shut off, you can access the features like the horn and the bell, which is an absolutely required thing for me. I've went over this in a lot of my other videos. When I've got my engines running silently on the layout, I want to be able to, honk the horn at my kid as he's watching or whatever and not bug the whole family. So awesome. I love that feature. Excellent that that's included. Let's turn this back on here. There's the startup procedure. Every time you turn the sound on, when the engine's sitting still, you get a startup procedure. And then that chug that you get from every dash 8, dash 9, just kind of that sound. Let's go ahead and flip on the, I forget what they call this feature, but you turn on function 9 and it allows you to adjust the throttle without the engine moving. Has a nice smooth engine throttle up. It goes through the notch steps nice and fluidly. Excellent sound files on this for sure. With the engine running at full RPM, all of your other sounds still function really well and don't get muddled by the engine noise. That's also a feature of a good speaker installed on this. I believe this has a sugar cube. I find everything to be plenty loud. As a matter of fact, I think I turned down the engine volume just a little bit to run better with my V4 Gevos that I've got on my layout, because they tend to run a little bit quiet. Let's go ahead and throttle this back down. The one issue that I do have with my scale trains, as well as anything else with the lock sound on my layout, it seems like the momentum, even if I put the same settings in 3 or 4, all of them kind of tend to run a little bit different in their momentum settings. And function 9 on these is set up for their their engine speed controller, and the way they want you to use it is, say you wanted to throttle up and get your engines moving at a slow pace. You're supposed to use your momentum setting to essentially feather the throttle in. So you would turn on function 9, increase the throttle to where you wanted it to be while the engine was sitting still, and then just release function 9 and turn it back on for just a moment and allow the momentum to catch up with the engine, and then you can adjust the throttle speed without ever changing the speed of the engine. And if you can get the momentum of all the engines in consist exactly the same, that function works properly and really well. It has a really good effect to it. The problem is I can't ever seem to get any of their momentum to be exactly the same, so some of the engines speed up and slow down faster than the other. Kind of annoying. However, if you just bring the engines up to speed, go ahead and kick the button on there and then adjust the throttle to whatever you want, it does technically function pretty well at that point. All the engines are already at the speed they need to be, and it does add for a neat effect. Here's the other thing that I really want to see if I can figure out, because it does hinder these engines in usefulness in other applications. I have looked and looked and looked, and I can't seem to find anywhere on the V5 sound profiles where you can get rid of the that true speed thing or whatever it is, the function 9, and just be able to move through your notches manually on other functions. Other decoders do not talk well with function 9. So if you had this in consist with, say, 2 other engines that had TCS decoders, or even lock pilot decoders, so if I was to put this in consist with this NS I have right here with a lock pilot in it, if I was to want to run sound on this and I turned on function 9 to speed up the engine RPM. The lock pilot here does not recognize function 9 being turned on, and this engine tries to throttle up and speed away from the consist. This goes for anything, a TCS, a Digitrax, an NCE. If it is in consist with this and you try to use that function 9 to change your throttle settings, because sometimes you put engines that don't have sound in consist with engines that do, and everything sounds just fine that way because you can't hear every engine in the consist anyway, and it just makes things look cooler. So this is kind of a feature that you lose running a lock pilot as opposed to running a Broadway Limited, because you can run through all of your engine notch settings without ever adjusting your throttle. You can run them with all the other engines, have the actual throttle knob move the speed of the engines and keep them all in consist with each other, and just use your function buttons to notch up or notch down. I do believe that's a feature in the version 4. I have been struggling through trying to get that to work in the ESU software, moving it to JMRI so I could program my my V4 decoders to do that in my GEVOs, because I would really like them to run with all of my other locomotives and whatnot I have on my layout. So if anybody out there knows the secret to making that work so you can switch these over, maybe you have to have a version 4 sound file installed on this, and how you could do that through JMRI, that would be awesome. I'd love to hear about it in the comments, because I think that would really be a game changer for these and make it so much more usable for everyone else running a mixed fleet of engines, because I would love to be able to put some Broadway Limiteds in with these, or just some Katos with some TCS decoders, and have them all run together properly. So at the end of the day, with the lock pilot installed, or a lock sound installed, excuse me, this thing has been 100% electrically reliable. It runs through turnouts properly, moves in both directions. The motor is a little bit loud. I wish they could get these a little bit quieter, but I understand that. Also, it runs with sound, so not that big a deal. But compared to that one that I showed the video of earlier, this thing has been spot on and really, really reliable. So I'm gonna say these new V2s in this triple truck variety with a good decoder installed are good to go, and are probably a good buy if you're looking for a Dash 8. I haven't looked at the Bachmann yet, and I hope to get the money to get some, here pretty soon. But yeah, for the money, the $220 kind of price range for these things, you can actually get them for like $212, free shipping on eBay right now, and a couple of different road names. I think it's pretty much a bang on deal. If somebody knows how to mod this, how to get the body a little bit lower, I think this would be a really nice looking model on the layout. The sound's awesome. I got to give Atlas credit on this. They were super close to having a perfect engine. If they just fixed the body on this, I think they finally got their quality control figured out on these, and good runability. So with the lock sound installed, unlike the version 1 DCC, Dash 8 that I had that had gear train or motor issues or whatever it was, this one has been very reliable, and I made sure to put a lot of runtime on this engine. You've probably seen it in a lot of my daily videos. I really wanted to push this thing, have it pulling hard, heavy loads for a long period of time, building up heat. I've ran it in consist with lots of engines. I've also ran it as DPU just to see. Although I have some issues with the Accumate couplers every now and then, it has been perfectly reliable. I do not have pickup issues with this. This is in fact a version 2 DCC. Get the body off here. if you look here, we have wired pickups, the quick snap together frame, and yeah, I'm so much happier with the way this engine turned out compared to, you know, the version 1 DCC engine that I initially bought. I think Atlas is starting to get things figured out. I don't know if it was an issue getting things imported from overseas or what, but this thing has been a darn good engine for me. Stay away from the DCC version if DCC ready version if you're not going to run it on DC. I don't think it's properly priced, mainly because we don't have quality decoders for it yet, but that might come in the future, in which case this could change. But that $210 to $220 that you can buy this thing right now with a speaker installed and an excellent decoder, that's a pretty darn good steal. If you're okay with the monster truck look or know how to mod it to get it out of there, this thing's a good deal. I think you're really going to like it. Finally, a good review for Atlas. Well done, guys. I'm glad you guys are starting to get stuff figured out. All right, everybody. I want to thank everyone for watching my content. I hit 500 subscribers the other day, so that's an awesome milestone for me. That means that I am going to start working on a 500 subscriber project. I got to get some stuff put together, and then I'm going to start releasing videos for that. I don't know that it'll happen this Monday, but I think the following Monday I'm going to do my 500 subscriber series. We'll put that out. We'll continue Empty Wallet Wednesday. We'll keep working on the weathering job, and then rolling stock reviews every Friday. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I will see you Wednesday for our weathering project.